Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. This is the show for coaches, speakers, and trainers who wants to grow their businesses by making an impact in the world. And we deliver a few episodes every week. Sometimes there is the behind the scenes of the things that we are doing here at GTeX. Sometimes we interview our clients to see what are some of the successes that they're having. Sometimes we have incredible guests like today to share a bit more about their thoughts, their ideas, some of the things that are working for them. And today we are going to talk about the evolution of the coaching and consulting industry over the past 20 years. So stay tuned because it's going to be an incredible topic. Get pen and paper ready. Open your ears, open your mind, and enjoy the conversation. Before we introduce our guest for today, I wanted to remind you that one of the resources that we can give you, it can really help you stand out from the crowd because right now, as we know, the marketplace is getting very competitive. I mean, everyone is a coach or a consultant. So if you want to have a solid business, you need to stand out from the crowd. You need to do something different and you need to show the work that you're doing. And one of the best ways is getting featured on publications and media. That helped us massively grow GTeX, grow our companies, and by contributing to Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, some of the major publications really put us on the map to build the communities that we have built now. So if there's something you're interested in, you can scroll down and get one of our free resources, which is how to get featured on Forbes and major publications. Make sure you check it out, register there. It's a free training that can teach you how to get in touch with journalists, how to pitch correctly, what angle to use, so then you can get featured and stand out from the crowd and leverage the power of publication to attract better contracts and better clients. So how to get featured on Forbes and major publications, scroll down, the link is there. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you subscribe right now so then you don't miss any other episode. And if you like the interview that we are doing, which I'm sure you will, make sure you leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, because the reviews are the lifeblood of podcasts. So we really appreciate you. We really appreciate you being with us. Now, without further ado, it's time to introduce our guest today. And as I mentioned, we are talking about how the consulting industry has evolved over the past 20 years. And today we have the one and only Wyn Morgan. Wyn is a master transformative coach and a global training consultant, and he is based in Windsor in the UK. Over the past 20 years, he has developed people in organizations all over the world and transformed their organization's results and their people's experience of life to have more joy, success with less stress. So talking about how the consulting industry has evolved over the past 20 years, please welcome the one and only Wyn Morgan. Welcome, Wyn.
Good to be here, Simone. How are you?
I am incredibly well, a bit sweaty, to be honest. How about you? How are things with you?
I will admit to being a little bit the same. We're not used to it being about, was it 26 degrees in my office here at home right now? But really enjoying it. Really enjoying having some nice sunny summer weather.
You know, before we get started and talking about the consulting industry, I always like to throw a curveball to every guest that I have at the beginning. And, you know, there are a few moments in life that are very rare, like the sun in the UK. So I want you to think about and tell us a moment or a story that was quite particular, quite unique, that happened in your life that can be or not be related to business, but really have a special place in your memory, like a sunny day in the UK. Well, what is that for you?
All right. So this was not a sunny day in the UK. It was a rainy evening in northeast France 5 years ago. Wales, the country of my birth, the country of my heart, played Belgium in the quarterfinals of the Euro football soccer championships. And it was the furthest that we'd got since 1958, and this was in 2016. And we beat Belgium, who were then ranked number one in the world, 3-1. And I was there with my brother and my eldest nephew, the three of us in northeast France, having an amazing time and celebrating being Welsh. And the reason
Wow.
that that's pertinent right now at the time of recording the Euro 2020, even though it's 2021, is that currently on. And my country plays yours on Sunday.
I know, right? I was saying I have a client who is well. So we were having a session this morning, and he started a call saying, we are going to beat your ass. So that's how we started the conversation. We'll see. We'll see. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a chat on Monday, Wyn. Let's have a chat.
We'll see how that goes. Right. Okay.
Like, game on, game on. And why was that a special moment for you?
So many disappointments of Wales almost getting to major football tournaments since I can remember, since 1978, and I was still 7 at the time. I turned 8 just after this happened, and not getting to the Argentinian World Cup. Then almost in 1980, in 82, in 84, in 86, in 88, so many close calls. And then finally to get there and to be there in person, and not only be there, but then exceed expectations. And the smallest country by population to get to a major soccer semi-final ever. Uruguay win that, but because of the population in the 1930s, they win that, but really population now, it's Wales. In a
Well,
semi-final, and being there was just very special to me.
It makes me think about all these moments in business where we are the underdog and we are just that close and nothing is happening, and you work really hard and nothing is happening, and you work really hard and nothing is happening, and you work really hard, and then there is a taste of victory that make things real, and puts in perspective all the hard work that we have put in. So I'm curious, if you've been a consultant for the past 20 years. How was it to start for you? Did you already have contacts? You went in straight away? Did you build yourself from scratch? How was your beginning?
Well, my beginning was I joined a training consultancy company back in 2001, and they had trained me when I was working in a large organization back in the 90s. So it was a very easy transition, but I just wanted to know if it's what I wanted to do. And I spent 5 years with them, learned lots. But then after 5 years, it kind of got to the stage where I knew I wanted to branch out and to do more in other areas, more of my coaching. And I was spending at least 5 weeks of the year, which was all of my vacation allowance, all of my holiday allowance, on personal development. And I thought, well, wait a minute, something's up here. So I figured a way of going alone 16 years ago.
And when you started straight away, because I think you said something really powerful right now, actually, which I want to dissect for the audience, because you were not sure if that's what you wanted to do. So you went to look for a company so you could see if that's also what you wanted to do, and as part of your own business.
Yeah.
How important was for you that experience in the shaping of yourself as a business owner, in the good, in the positive, and the negative?
Well, I don't really think of any negatives in my personal experience with that. If I'd have stayed longer, maybe I'd have said there were some negatives, but to me, they were all positives because I had a basic income and learning how to be incredibly impactful in front of a group of people, and then multiple groups of people and larger groups of people. And I learnt the ropes, as we'd say in the UK. We'd learnt the kind of fundamentals of how to do it, even though it's a little different now, 20 years on. But I learned to do that and be paid for it. So I didn't have to build up a nest egg of, say, 6 months worth of salary by the side of me in order to then fumble around enough for me to get a little bit of traction. That was very easy for me.
Which is what a lot of people do. I think that a lot of time people make their life very, very difficult by going into a field where they have no contacts, no connections, no background, and suddenly they expect their business to bloom. Like, and I remember, actually, for the first 4 years of my business, I used to work for companies, for other companies, and they were providing me with contracts, and I was going in schools and delivering all these contracts. And that was the best training ground that I could have ever had. And I could have a roof over my head. and some food in the fridge, which is helpful.
Very helpful.
Which is very helpful. So you don't have to worry about survival. What are some of from those experience? Like, how was the consulting industry there then when you started?
Well, the training consultancy business then, so I'm going back to 2001, was very much, it was like a copy paste. So each training company had their own branded way of training salespeople, of training negotiation, of training presentation skills, of training leadership and managers. And literally they would change logos from this client to another client, and that would be it. That changed very early back in, say, 2000, 2001 to 2003, to become far more bespoke and tailor-made to individual client needs. So that was the first big change that I saw within that industry.
Okay, why do you think that change happened? Because I'm always curious about the why certain changes happen or market adapts. So, from your perspective, why do you think that change happened? Was that because of the customer's demand? But what was in that idea for you?
You just answered it. Customers' demand. Customers wanted something bespoke and tailored to them. They didn't want a cookie cutter 2.5 days or 3.5 days program with 2 facilitators. And the exact same thing being done. They wanted something in their own language, far more tailored to their corporate style, to their industry, and far more in line with the way that they wanted to work.
And why do you think it wasn't happening before?
It didn't have to. So there wasn't the push from the client base that would make that industry wake up to say, hey, you need to do some more tailoring. Because let's face it, if we could earn a lot of money just by doing copy paste, and that's the only effort that would ever go into the preparation, and just, press print, and that would be it, and you just show up at 9:30 ready to train a group of 8 people or 19 people in a room, then that's the easiest way. But until then, the demands and the needs of the client base changed. No need for that, for the industry to move on.
And then eventually the industry moved on, so it became more bespoke. And that's probably at that time where you started your own business. So the first question I want to ask you around that is, what did you find to be the major differences for you personally from being employed and deliver the training and setting up your own consulting company? What were the biggest differences for you?
The biggest difference for me was I was no longer only delivering training and having some developmental conversations. I was the one doing the start of every conversation. I was the account manager for the client. I was in charge of all of the invoicing and payments, and of course doing all the delivery and the follow-up. So all of a sudden, all of the admin that was done by other people was all on my shoulders. And that took a little bit of getting used to.
And was there something in particular that, for example, you hated doing from like, because there are things that we can like more doing when we put our entrepreneurial hat on, and things that we don't like doing too much? What were some of the things that you hated doing?
Chasing invoices, late payments, and chasing them. Absolutely hated it.
I'm sure you're speaking for a lot of people here. and a lot of things have not changed right now. So for someone who is starting out, actually putting themselves in business for the first time, maybe they were delivering training for a company and now they decide to put their own start their own company. What are some of the best piece of advice that from your experience you could give them?
Go and talk to as many potential clients as possible and don't sell.
What?
Just get to know them, and get to know them, and really get to know them. Spend as much time as you can, given social distancing, as possible, given the time that you're listening to this. Have lots of cups of coffee, tea, drinks with people, and really get curious to figure out what it is for that person and that person's company that they really need.
Let me play the devil's advocate here, because someone is here saying, I can hear people saying, but I need clients. Like, I ain't got time to sit around and have a cup of coffee here and have a cup of coffee there. So it's a bit can be a bit counterintuitive.
It can be, but if you're really desperate for clients, I guarantee you the one thing you won't get is clients.
Fair point. So can you expand on that?
Yeah. If we're in client acquisition mode, the person that we're talking to gets a sense of that, and it's really off-putting. At best, it feels, salesy, and it can feel uncomfortable and smarmy. And we also feel that we're putting ourselves out there and getting ready for rejection, or we get tight in our own head. We feel we've got something to lose, that we've got things at stake. And whenever that's in our head, our listening is awful. Our curiosity about what they really need is terrible. And the relationship is not off to a good start. So in my mind, the people who actually go from having cups of coffee to then becoming clients in the short, medium, and long term are the ones that know, like, and trust us. And I'd start there without being, hey, like me, know me, trust me, because that's off-putting. But the best way possible of being respected, known, and liked is to actually just be present with the person that you're meeting with and remaining curious about what really it is that they're looking for, and then later think about what ways you might think of to help them.
Can you give an example for example, of a client that ended up being a client that started with a cup of coffee?
Well, I would say the vast majority of them. So I'm trying to think of one specific example. Well, okay, given the fact I'm talking to you and you're currently in your home country of Italy, not that far north of you, I went to have a conversation with the HR manager of a company. And I knew the country manager of that company, having worked together when he was based somewhere else in another part of the world. And he said, hey, look, we need some help. Can you just come and talk to my HR person? So, I'll do this guy a favor. I'll get on a plane and I'll go meet them. And 2.5 hours I was with the HR manager. And we had a stand-up espresso to begin with, which is, a nice Milan way of saying hello.
Of course. Yes, absolutely.
Halfway through,
as you
another stand-up espresso with them and somebody else from finance, just because they were there at the coffee bar. And literally all I did was want to get to know her and what mattered to her about her role. And literally by the end of that, she said, I think you know me better than anyone else. You know my business better than I did before we started this conversation. How can you help? And I said, well, I'm going to now spend the next few hours while I fly home and I'll write up a plan. But here are my first ideas based upon what you've said. What you're looking for is something like this. And she said, that's perfect. How quickly can you do it? Well, I'll work on that tonight and I'll be able to send it to you by Tuesday. And I think this was a Thursday.
So there are
how much detail that you need, but
that's brilliant. And there are two lessons in here. One is, as you mentioned before, really get to know the person, because you went there being helpful. And you, even if you had something to sell, like you had something that you could help them with, you didn't lead with the agenda of these are all the things that I can do, until she asked you, hey, can you do this? Which is a very different conversation now to have, even you by putting yourself forward. So that's the number one. And the second, that espresso is good for business, which is something that as an Italian, I can confirm, I can guarantee. In fact, I was like, that was a big, that's a big mug, but I was actually having an espresso here in the big mug. So now going back to the evolution of the consulting industry, since you started, where are you finding are the biggest differences compared to how it was before, compared to how it was when you started?
Well, I don't know if I could say about the entire industry, but I know about how I work today and how that continues to make a bigger impact with clients than I thought possible 20 years ago, and probably thought possible even 6 years ago.
Well, that's a great starting point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'll give an example. One of my long-term coaching clients is the VP of an organization based in the UK, but he has a pan-European role. And in their company, they've had, here's the service that for this quarter, let's say for quarter one, 2021, this is what I'd like you to go and talk to our existing client base about. Which sounded like a really good idea. And in theory, it really can be. But in practice, it can really limit some things. What my client did differently was go to the to his client and really get very present with them, get very curious, and ask a load of questions. And then it just occurred to them to ask, so what are you doing about this one specific thing, given what's happening in the economy and in population within the next 5 years? And the client said, I've no idea, we've not thought about it yet, but we know that's a time bomb waiting to happen. And my client said, well, we do have something for that. And by the sound of it, that could be a big saving for you in the long term. And he said, yeah, if we could sort that out, that would be multi-billions for us. And there were those numbers. Now, this is a long-winded way, but I will come back to your question in a second. The result of that conversation between my client and his client was what would have been around 12.5 million euros per year of a 3-year contract, given the service of the quarter ended up being 165 million.
That's all right. That's a small increase.
It's
a very small. That's a very insignificant increase, I should say.
Yeah. So let me now rewind back
Please.
to what that guy, and let's call him Sam, not his real name. Let's call him Sam, and what Sam got from the conversations with me. Effectively, in my time with Sam, he got to see everything that was in his favor in building great connections with people, including existing clients and potential new clients, his family, his colleagues. All of that became very clear to him, and also all the things that were interfering, that got in the way of his brilliance and his real-time genius. And those were the words that we used. And as soon as he realized that what he was doing was being easily distracted by thoughts of the future, thoughts of the past, getting excited about signing a deal, all of this stuff was contaminating his real-time genius. And when he saw he did not have to pay attention to that, because he saw he was ignoring lots of other things that would enter his head. He wasn't spending 2 minutes thinking about the spurious question about what do I have for lunch today. That would just come in and out. But the thought of what am I going to do with this client would be in there, and it would fester even for 20 seconds. And 20 seconds means 20 seconds of not listening. You put that into a 90-minute meeting, there's a lot of 20 seconds that can get in our way of listening.
Yeah.
And intuitively, because he was able to access his intuition and that real-time genius, that conversation flourished. So I used to work in a way that would be like marginal gains, which works. It has, great impact. And I would have said 6 years ago, 10 years ago, definitely, they were awesome. And I also sometimes thought that might be as good as it gets. I now see that it isn't. There's an awful lot more on offer that can take probably like a 9-fold increase in the best result possible. Not a 9% increase, but a 900% increase on what we think is possible. So one way of saying that would be, I would say that my job is more now helping people think more clearly and accessing clearer thought than it is about giving them information. It's insight rich as opposed to information give.
Which on one side, I mean, we are thinking, we are living in a society which is very interesting at the moment, or weird, because people are looking for answers, and answers can be found everywhere. But people are looking for answers more than ever. They're more confused than ever. And there are more informations than ever. So it's not about the answers. And there is something that you said around accessing your intuition. and having this clarity of thoughts, which is going a bit on a different note from where I thought this conversation was going. Because I was thinking, okay, we're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about advancement in like what's going to be the future and how's that been evolved. But actually, you're getting us back to the core. You're getting us back to something that has very little to do with technology at this point. So the question that I want to ask is that there has been a lot of technological changes. There has been a lot of changes in the industry, and at the same time, you're bringing back to the core. So how do you combine the two? Because on one side is accessing the clearer thought, and on the other side is making these advancements. So how do you find the two words combined in your word or in your client's word?
It's a really good point. So with my clients, the best way I can serve my clients is helping them know that they're an idea generating machine. And what gets in the way of those ideas being generated are things such as confusion, muddy thinking, thinking about too many things, the feeling of overwhelm. And I think that's when they see the truth of the fact that they, as a human being, as every human being is an ideas generating machine. Technology and all those advances in innovation takes care of itself. If I am downstream helping people implement ideas, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It can make an amazing advancement, but it's not the 165 million idea. It's the 10 million idea. Great, but I'm still playing small, and I don't want to play small, and I don't want my clients to play small either.
What made you have this shift? Because before you mentioned you went from marginal gain to these exponential gains. Yeah. What was your catalyst to change the way you were thinking and you were acting, and therefore working also with your clients?
Well, I saw it for myself. I saw my own real-time intelligence, my own real-time genius and responsiveness in the moment at play. And it was always at play, but I just didn't see it. And when I saw it, and I kept seeing it, I thought, wait a minute, why would I be downstream in the ideas compared to helping people see what's always behind and powers all of us? I want to go there. And when I started spending more and more time seeing that for myself as a human being, and then noticing that in other people, I thought that's where I want to spend my time.
Was there any particular episode that was a catalyst for you that you can remember where you got, where you say, okay, I get this. I get it, where it crystallizes in you?
I'm trying to think of one specific example, but I remember looking back at a few months. Let's say I'm looking back at the previous 2 or 3 months. And this is probably going back 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm looking back at what changes people had made based upon the training I delivered for them 10 to 12 weeks ago. And I always thought that it was going to be in the behavior and in the skill development. And then I noticed that it wasn't. And I noticed that that was true for me too. That my skills haven't really changed in the last 10 years. But my ability to access skills, my ability to remain curious, my ability to listen better, my idea to be fresh in the moment and be less distracted, and to, frankly, love the person I'm talking to, that's become far easier when I know that, and I've seen that to be true for myself, and I see that the breadcrumbs of that being the real source of the difference in everyone else. It's, oh my Lord, this is now as plain as the nose on my face. I cannot deny me being that way, nor anyone else.
Is there any particular exercise that you recommend to your clients to access that clarity of thought, or something that someone who is listening can start doing as a first step, as a starting point?
Yeah, and it's difficult to give a prescription of that because it will vary moment by moment. Depending on the person I will speak to, then a good exercise will come to mind. Here's one thing I'd want to point out regarding specifically listening as a skill, which is still underappreciated, but getting some good recognition. What I like people to be curious about is, with an open mind, take a look at, is listening a skill that is innate, that we're born with, or one that we learn? And it doesn't take long for us to realize that the best listeners in the world are babies. There's no contamination of, I will now think about what's being said, or I'll think about all of that stuff. It's completely open-minded. Their listening is amazing. They don't have the linguistics yet to ask amazing questions all the time, but their curiosity and their open-minded listening is amazing. And then we grow up. And in between then and now, what happens is we have things that look like good ideas that continually get in our way of being great at being an amazing listener and being present with somebody.
Mhm.
We're born that way. So that as a skill is more about subtraction than addition, or understanding as opposed to development.
Yeah, is going back to where we what we had before
Yes.
all the contamination. And I'm thinking about kids right now, when they ask the questions about everything, and they can imagine everything, and there is less of a filter of what they believe is possible or not. They think about it, they ask, they try. And we have definitely growing up, we have lost that, and is about remembering it. So what is something that someone can do to start the process of unlearning and trusting themselves more as well? Because on one side is listening, but on the other side is also trust, because I can have an immediate idea, but I start doubting myself.
Yeah. Well, there's two things that I might do there. If I'm talking to someone and they've got doubts, I would talk about the nature of doubt. And what is doubt? It's a thought. We have lots of thoughts. Some of them look like they're real and some of them look like they're not. Some of them are worth paying attention to, we think, and some aren't.
Mhm.
Some are meaningful and some aren't. And yet, in fact, they all are fleeting. We put the meaning on things. They're not inherently meaningful without our putting meaning on them. And we all think, and we are free to drop a thought, including self doubt. So, for me personally, you asked me a question about me earlier on. I have an amazing relationship with doubt and insecurity that a lot of people find surprising about me. The one thing I've learned is that I don't think that doubts are anything other than, as I said earlier on, what's for lunch today? Or what socks do I wear tomorrow? They are as meaningless as that in their nature. And when I see the truth of that, and that's the trick, when I see the truth of that, there's nothing to trust. There's nothing to do, because I'm already seeing the world differently because I've had an insight.
Mm.
Insight is what changes and moves the needle in people, not information.
Mm. That's a that's a really interesting point. That's a really insight is what moves the needle. It's not information, because information you can find them, information they're always there, but the insights of what to do or what to say in a particular given situation that can move the needle, and the ability to drop in the thoughts that can stop us from creating sound. Sometimes we think, oh, we have too much to lose to make that change. uh, it's too difficult to make, while it might not be.
Right.
We might not have anything to lose, who knows. So if there is definitely one thing I'm taking away from this interview, which I absolutely love, is the last thing you said about insights, and they are the insight that gets someone to have that quantum leap, that big change. And the fact that even if the industry and the work that you have done has actually evolved, but it's simplified. That's the idea that I have. Did I get it right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that you said simplified. And sometimes I have a conversation with clients about that when they say something like, Wyn, it can't be that simple. And I say, oh, it might be. You don't know. but don't try and make it complex if it isn't, because I guarantee, or the only thing that you'll do is get in your way.
It's true. Doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't.
Nope.
I remember some of the biggest things that I've done, they came actually pretty easy.
So now there's a lot of people who are listening that would relate to that they get ideas out of the blue, things that they thought might be hard, and they look back and think, well, wait a minute, I thought that would be a big deal and it wasn't. And we forget about those things from our recent past or long-term past, and we see it differently in the future. When in fact, when we just take a little bit of perspective and a look at things, we might see things totally different. And
100%.
wait a minute, I've got an awful lot more of me that I can bring to the table than I ever thought possible. Let's see how that plays out.
And with this is my challenge to everyone listening right now. Give it a go. I'll leave you with this question. See how it plays out. Give it a go. And then let us know. Let us know what ideas there are you going to act on. Because I'm sure that if you've been listening till now, you got some ideas. And I don't know, I'm feeling much calmer at the moment than I started the interview, and a deeper sense of peace. And I'm taking away from this interview what is to trust myself more and to listen. But I think when the topic of listening is not just listening to others more, is also listening to ourselves more. They listening in both ways. So thank you, Wyn. I appreciate it. I love this interview. Prego. So if people want to reach out to you to say, actually, I need a bit of Wyn in my life. I need a bit of help because I might struggle to do all this on my own. How can they reach out to you?
Well, I know the details are going to be visible here with the podcast details as well, but I'm very easy to find. Wyn Morgan is not a very complicated a couple of words to look on the internet. Apparently on LinkedIn, there's probably two of us. One is an economics professor. That's not me. Wyn Morgan, W-Y-N, 1N. And then Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N. Look me up. My company is called Winning, wyning.co.uk. And then you can find that online. Very easy to find online, www.winning.co.uk.
Awesome. www.winning.co.uk, and also Wyn Morgan on LinkedIn. All the links are in the show notes, so make sure you scroll down and check it out. Wyn, it has been an absolute pleasure to have this interview today, and thank you for joining us.
It's been lovely to talk with you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. And until next time, remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.